Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video on Satoshi Central. And I hope you are having a lovely day, and I hope you are all celebrating the 100K hit on Bitcoin. Bittersweet, right? It means that more people are catching on, hopefully. It also means the value of our Bitcoin is going up, yay. But on the bitter side, it means we're not getting as much Satoshis. But that's not gonna stop us from stacking because we know the value. So like you guys always tell me, keep stacking because I am. Thank you so much, Lita, for your donation. I really appreciate the love and support. Love you lots, Lita. Thank you all for just being here and everyone for their continuous support here on my channel. It's great to have you all here with me. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. So today I just wanted to talk a little bit about inflation. I did touch on it a little bit in my previous video, but we're gonna take a little deeper dive today. I wanted to talk about the Google interpretation of inflation. So if you search up on Google now the meaning of inflation, it's gonna tell you about the increases of prices in an economy over time, measuring the living standard in an economy, right? Along with that, if you search up the causes of inflation, they're gonna tell you it's either based on supply and demand, or it's the corporations in everybody's eyes, right? Or another thing everybody likes to blame is our current president at the time, which we'll get into why that was a huge contributing factor to our most recent 4-year inflation increase. So just to touch a little bit on supply and demand, I'd like to use eggs as an example. It's one that I heard in a previous video and one that I see myself every time I go into the grocery store. Eggs are $7 to $8 a dozen. To touch on the supply side of that, is the supply of eggs changing? Does an egg look different to you guys? Because as far as I know, it's the same exact size. It's either brown or white. And in fact, we have mass production of eggs now. We are farming chickens, cows, everything. So if anything, we have an increased supply, right? And when you have an increased supply of something, what happens? The value becomes less. So then the price should become less, right? So there we cut out supply. Supply, in theory, isn't the problem. Let's talk about demand. I'm still buying a dozen, maybe 1 to 2 weeks just for myself and my child. I'm not going crazy over eggs. It's still the same for me. Eating them for breakfast. I'm not demanding eggs. What is changing about it is it is now, like I said, $7 to $8 a dozen. Crazy. And if you search up another cause behind this, they say that the pandemic heavily contributed to the supply and demand affecting inflation. The pandemic played a heavy role in that. I do agree with that. Not just because the labor shortages, not because less demand and actually higher supply. Because in theory, everything should have got cheaper, right? Everybody was at home. No. Everybody got stimmies. They got stimulus checks. And what did I talk about in my previous video, if you saw? When there is an overflow into the system, there's going to be some way to compensate, right? When there's an overflow into the system and something is not finite, your dollar is not finite, because with those stimulus checks, they printed up those dollars. They didn't just come out of thin air saying, here you guys go, here's all this money. We had this in perfect budget for you. Almost like we planned this, right? Yeah. We budgeted thousands, millions of dollars of stimulus checks in a pandemic that happened overnight. No, That's not what happened. They printed up lots of dollars for those stimulus checks. And like I said, with that overflow into the system, your dollar now means less. If you have a higher supply of something, it becomes less valuable. With the dollar, your dollar has less purchasing power now. You can't purchase as much as you used to with that dollar anymore because it doesn't mean as much anymore. Like we talked about, the supply and demand hasn't changed with the eggs. It's $7 to $8 now because $7 to $8 doesn't mean as much as it used to. Right? Right. And then they also want you to blame those corporations selling you the eggs, right? It's Walmart's fault. It is Walmart's fault for charging you $7. They just want to make your life so hard. No. If Walmart is purchasing these eggs at a higher value, what are they going to do? Sell it at a higher value so that they can make profit. That is any business construct, and I don't blame them. Because at the end of the day, the supply, the demand, the corporation is not the fault. The value of the dollar is the fault. It doesn't mean as much anymore. There's too much of them in the system. And it's gonna just continue to keep going up. So everything's gonna continue to keep getting more expensive. And on top of that, if you study the rise and fall of an economy, when an economy begins to fall, what happens is the government causes civil disputes. So how is that showing up today? They want you to blame the corporations and point the fingers at them so we don't really see who's at fault, right? Then you're gonna all blame each other going crazy, fighting the wrong enemy. And it definitely has not increased based off of your new president. If anything, your previous presidency actually allowed this overprinting of dollars. And at the end of the day, there's going to only be one real solution. We're going to need another form of money. We're getting to the point where, like I mentioned, the fall of an economy is coming. And we know that China's right on our tail trying to prove that they're the next best. But I believe that there is one solution to this, and it's to have a more finite currency, a currency that can't just be printed up like that. A currency where you're not worried about the value of your currency fluctuating. A currency that is finite and set. A currency that checks all those characteristics and functions I mentioned in my previous video. And the currency, the money that I mentioned at the start of my video hitting 100K. And I pray that it's because everybody's beginning to see the value. And that is Bitcoin. I am going to talk further about Bitcoin in future videos. I am basing my channel currently off of bringing clarity to the problems. Because as I've said, we can't obtain a viable solution without identifying the problem. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. I hope everybody continues to have a lovely rest of their day and celebrate our wonderful Bitcoin hitting 100K. In my next video, I would like to discuss my personal goals and dive a little bit more into Bitcoin, as well as the cold storage that I am now using to store my Bitcoin. So stay tuned for that one. We'll talk about that next video. Again, thank you all so much for watching. I am so grateful to have you here, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.